Hello and welcome to today's class on application of data analytics in financial accounting and reporting. Today we shall be constructing a simple profit and loss account as well as a balance sheet when you've been provided with a trial balance, and we shall be doing this in Excel. This is just the simple foundational step in FA, and we shall see how we can be able to make it simpler while using Excel. So the first thing, we read the question. It reads, you are the junior accountant for Little Bird Company. You have been provided with a trial balance as of December 31st, 2023 and have been tasked with preparing the profit and loss account and the balance sheet based on the following data. So we have this, we have all these items that are both a income statement or profit and loss statement items as well as the balance sheet items. And in the balance sheet we have the assets and the liabilities as well as the equity, whereas in the profit and loss account we have the revenues, the expenses and the profit for the period and the taxes. So the first step we do is open up Excel. So you open up Excel, and the first step is always to copy the data into Excel. Now, since we are operating, since we have this data in soft data, we can simply copy down the trial balance by highlighting the table, pressing Ctrl C, opening Excel, and Ctrl V. Right. So we have the copied down data. We can make it more presentable and make it occupy less space by highlighting them and then resizing the width. That's one. That's second. When we resize the sizes of the columns, now we have it in a more compressed and in a neater way. Now we can make them, it looks better. So in the first step, when we are going to construct the profit and loss account, and we can begin by writing the title. The first thing is the name of the company, which we saw was Little Bird. It was Little Bird Company. So let us write Little Bird Car Company. And write profit and loss account for the period ended December 31st, 2023. And the first item on the profit and loss account is always the sales revenue. Now we just right here, write us to introduce, call it no fill, sales revenue. Here we have our sales revenue, and we just pull it from the trial balance using the referencing as we learned in Excel. Right, the equals sign equals sales revenue, hit enter. The second thing is less cost of goods sold. Cost of goods sold, and here we have it as equals minus cost of goods sold. You have it here. So we can let us format this column using the accounting format, and then we remove decimal points to ensure there are no decimal points. Let us use the number format. Let us use the number format by clicking on the comma and removing the decimal points. So less cost of goods sold, and that with that we have the gross profit. Gross profit, you say equals sales revenue plus cost of goods sold, hit enter. Let us introduce a top border. So we have the gross profit as that. Then we say less operating expenses. First, we have the operating expenses being provided there. Hit enter. Then we can say net operating income, which is simply this plus this. Introduce top border by clicking on top border. Then next we have expense, interest, just interest expense, and with that you have depreciation as equals B16, interest as equals B17. This should be negative, so it should be equals minus B16 equals minus that, and then now we have the profit before tax is simply the sum of all of these, say, because sum, highlight them, close brackets, hit enter, top border. So we have profit before tax, and then we introduce the income tax expense. Income tax expense, you have it equals minus, click on cell B18, hit enter. Then now we have profit after tax. Right, introduce top border. So we have the profit for the period as that, right? We can now, with that, we have, let us format it better so that it is better looking. That makes it better. Let us make this bold, make the topic or make the subheadings bold, or the title bold, for it to look better. And I think that's better. So we have our profit and loss account. So we have solved part A of the question, generate a profit and loss account for that period. Secondly, we are required to generate the balance sheet. Now with the profit and loss account as well as the trial balance, it is easier to develop the balance sheet. Let us develop the balance sheet. Just below that, let us copy down the name of the company. Let us call it balance sheet as at. Remember the titles to write them well, as at Dec 31 2023. So the first thing we need to have, let us look at our trial balance. Let us just note them mentally, what assets and liabilities we have. We have cash, accounts receivables, inventory, prepaid expenses, plant and equipment, depreciation, accounts payable, notes payable, unearned revenue, common stock, retained earnings, and so on. So we begin with plant. Let us write assets. Let us begin with assets, and we write plant and equipment. equals. Remember, we said that you do not hard code the data, or rather you use referencing. If you have the trial balance, ensure you use referencing. Do not type down, for instance, for plant and equipment, do not write down, let's say, 50,000, something like that, right? Because what if you make a mistake and let's say instead of 50,000, you write 500,000 and you proceed, you'll find that it will be very hard to know where the mistake is. But when you use referencing, it makes your work easier. So you write equals B6 where the plant and property is, such that if these figures were to change, let's say into 60,000, this will change as well. You won't have to come back and correct it. But if you had to hard code, you'll need to go back and correct it, which will waste a lot of your time. And we are trying to save time, right? So we have plant and equipment less accumulated depreciation equals minus, we have accumulated depreciation there. So what is the net amount of plant and equipment? We just type it there, that plus this, that's the net amount. Let us introduce, we should have named this, call them non-current assets. Come here and have now the current assets. Now with the current assets, we have cash, equals B2. Then we also have accounts receivable, which is that. Then we have inventory. In fact, to make it easier, we can just copy down this. Nah, don't copy down inventory and prepaid assets. And then here you use referencing for the reasons that I equals B4, hit enter, and then drag it for it to copy down into B5 since it's corresponding. Then we can talk that's the last of the current assets. So come here and say, let's type total current assets, type it here, equals sum, close brackets, hit enter, and like total assets. The assets is simply this plus this, right? Introduce a top border for it to look neater. Then now we have the assets. Let us start formatting it a little. Highlight that and hit Control B again, so that the title is clear. Then here for current assets, also Control B, so that it's clear. Have total assets. Let's come here and look at the current liabilities. Let us look at the liabilities that we have. We have accounts payable, notes payable, unearned revenue, common stock, these items of equity. So let us just write liabilities. Now with liabilities, let us we have accounts payable all the way to unearned revenue. Remember, unearned revenue is a liability because you have received money that you've not earned. So highlight them, hit Control C, come back here, Control V. This is a shortcut. Remember, always use shortcuts to save on time in data analytics as well as in life. So accounts payable, we use referencing. Accounts payable equals this figure here that we have, accounts payable, cell C8. And when we do that, we can copy down the formula since it refers to the same, or since they are corresponding. Let's talk about total liabilities equals sum, open brackets, highlight B48 to B50, close brackets, hit enter. Then now we look at the equity. With equity, we have common stock as well as retained earnings. So let us type down common stock equals, we have common stock there, then retained earnings equals, have retained earnings as this. This is opening retained earnings. Remember, we had profit for the period. Maybe we should have calculated the closing retained earnings that we shall plug in our balance sheet. We did not do that, but worry not. That's the beauty of Excel. So what do? We add this. We add columns here. And it was important that I showed you this so that in the exam setting, let's say you make such a mistake, what do? Do you delete the work and start again, or what do you do? So let me remove. So if it's like this, if you want to add a few rows here, click on the row 33 here at the end and highlight the whole row, and then hit Control Shift plus. That way you add a row. You can also just right click the row and hit Insert. It will do the same. Click, hit Insert. Right click, scroll down to Insert, click Insert. Right, it will have the same thing. So we had the profit after tax for the period. Here we can introduce opening retained earnings. And with the opening retained earnings equals, we have the retained earnings here. So we have closing retained earnings, which is simply this plus this. Let us introduce a top border. Click on that cell and then hit top border. So we have 18,000. So for our retained earnings, we will refer to that equals B34. That's our retained earnings. Do you have any other item of equity just other than common stock and retained earnings? No. So let us say total equity. Total equity equals 29 plus 18 top. Yeah, maybe we should have transferred this there to equity. Then we say equity, let's say total equity and liabilities. You simply add this total equity plus total liabilities, and we have 87,000, which balances with the total assets. Remember the accounting equation: total assets is equals total liabilities plus total equity and plus total equity. Right? So let us add a top border as well as double underline it, as well as this double underline it, since we have closed out the balance. So this is a simple balance sheet and profit and loss account. This is a foundational. For you to be able to do the BDA exam, you need to be able to formulate the profit and loss account as well as the balance sheet from a trial balance using Excel. And I have showed you several tricks that you'd use to make sure you save as much time as possible. One of them is ensuring you have the data in your Excel. Ensure that you have all the relevant data in the Excel document so that you don't have to keep on referring, right? So once you have it there, you can use referencing. All of this we've used referencing. We've not hard coded any of this. We were just saying equals this, equals that, and then we perform the formulas. When you hard code, you will waste a lot of time, as well as you will be prone to making errors since it will not be accurate. You might type an extra zero, you might type a comma where it's not required, and it might cause your answer to be wrong. For instance, you find that your data, or rather your balance sheet, may have failed to balance. And that's how you know that you made a mistake. So if we look at the question you were asked, check your work to ensure that the balance sheet balances, meaning total assets equal total liabilities plus equity. If there are discrepancies, recheck your work. So luckily for us, we found that total assets balanced with total equity and liabilities, and therefore we were accurate. Try it out yourself and see whether you'll get it right. In case of any question, do not hesitate to reach out. But for now, have a good time.